Happy Sunday, guys. It is Sharla K coming live to you guys with another Forever Friends Academy episode. How are you guys doing? Happy Labor Day weekend. Hopefully I can get some of you guys on with me. I don't know, you guys might be like, I don't know, barbecuing, swimming, doing something, I don't know. But hopefully I can get you guys on with me tonight. Happy to be on as usual. Hey, Justin, how are you? At the tippity top of the podcast, I just got on. How you doing? Good to see you. Yeah, I really literally was just on. I just came on, so you didn't miss anything. Oh, I appreciate you, Justin. I appreciate you. Yeah, I'm excited. Justin is a producer from my Snowflakes and Gumdrops album, and I have the wonderful opportunity to work with him again on a new song that we're working on for you guys called Just the Way You Are. And I was just telling him the other day that I finally now, because this summer has been so busy in a really good way, but I finally have the right energy, number one. Any of the creatives out there know how that is. You really want the right energy to be able to pour into any kind of new music that you want to make. So I have that now, and I have some time. So hopefully we can get you guys that new song by this fall. So I appreciate it. So let me get to a formal introduction for anyone who might be listening to the podcast new today. My name is Sharla Kornegay. I'm an author, recording artist, creator of Interact Coaching and Forever Friends Academy, which is my subscription-based group membership where I do relationship group coaching. This is my show titled after the same, Forever Friends Academy. We talk about all relationship topics. My main goal and aim is just to provide principles, foundational tools that people can build their relationships upon so that they can build relationships and develop relationships that last a lifetime. I'm a firm believer in love. I'm a firm believer that God is love, and that in this modern day culture, you most definitely can still meet and develop relationships that are enriching to your heart, your soul, your mind, your being, where the people can come together and understand that the goal is to grow together and to play as one and put the team first always. So, in a nutshell, that's what I do here. Hopefully you'll hear something that will resonate with you tonight. And if you are interested in any of my music, on the stage, I go by Sharla K. That's Sharlak. Go to any, music platform that you usually listen to your music on, and you'll find my music there. Definitely, hopefully you'll find something you like. I definitely love to write anthems, things that inspire people, definitely things that inspire people to love. And of course, the Christmas season is coming around. And as I was just talking about, Justin and I was one of the producers that collaborated with me on my Snowflakes and Gumdrops Christmas album. So I know there are lots of folks out there that start listening to Christmas music as soon as the summer, and some all year round. I have a song titled Christmas All Year Round. So if you are one of those, definitely bump the album all year long. But if you're one of those who like to get into the Christmas season mood early on, please feel free. Play the album, and hopefully it could be the soundtrack for your Christmas season and every Christmas season thereafter. So that's enough about me and what I do. We are definitely going to dive into tonight's topic tonight. And I don't really, those of you who come to my show often, I usually put out a quote and then a question at the tippity top, and I'm going to do that tonight, but it actually is going to be a part of me overviewing what we talked about from our last podcast, because that conversation has not left my mind since I came off with you guys. So I just want to throw it out just in case I get some new energy and new folks on tonight. And I'll throw that out to you guys tonight. But for those of you who come on with me, on Sundays, I usually designate Sundays for our relationship scenarios, where I put out usually a scenario that I kind of just create, imagine it from my own imagination about a couple. And we get to fill in the space and the place like we are going to be the therapist and the coach. And then we get to, extract some principles from it, and I get to hear your thoughts on it. So that's what we're going to do tonight. But before we get into that, let me kind of put out the quote from our previous podcast and the question, just to hear, if I have some new people on here tonight, your thoughts, and then do just a little overview of what we talked about. So the quote from our last podcast is, when I am consuming, I'm not creating. So let me say that again and not fumble it. The quote is, when I am consuming, I'm not creating. And that quote is by a professional surfer called Bethany Hamilton. I absolutely love the quote. She made that statement during an interview, and the person who had asked her the question, what are some things that she does to, one, maintain her energy, because she is a mother and a wife, and still be able to hone in on her craft and her skills. And so that was one of her things that she said. That statement came to her, and that helped her to, basically appropriate her day, to understand that when she's consuming something, that's taking away energy from working on something that she can be creating. So that was a quote that I put out, and the question to go along with that quote from the last podcast that I introduced to the listeners was, what are the top 3 things that you would like to create with your partner, or you would like to create with your spouse if you are married, or if you're not married and you're single? What are the top 3 things that you would like to create with your future spouse? And so during that episode, I definitely, feel free to let me know, any new people who are listening tonight, what your thoughts are on that quote, and definitely feel free to answer the question. But the things that I said during the last podcast was definitely, I love the quote. Definitely me being a creative. You guys know I've written books before. I write songs. I'm a songwriter. So I write songs. Whether I'm creating worksheets or coaching programs for my clients, I'm creating pretty much constantly. So to hear that was a really good, healthy dose of truth for me, because I think even me being a person who focus and is very centered on creating, this current culture that we live in modern society, I can definitely attest to it. It can be the social media machine monster, can be very polarizing, meaning like and for many of us who are creative, many of us who have started business initiatives and things like that, you want to use it take advantage of the opportunity that it gives you, which, definitely I think we all can attest to it, to be able to reach people all over the world instantaneously. It would be almost foolish not to use it in that way. But at the same time, if you don't have balance, and if you don't create some type of regiment, so that you're not pulled in and it's not sucking up your time and your energy like the vacuum that it can tend to be and become for so many people, then you'll find that you're consuming a lot. And definitely, if you're a person who has a business, or is a creative, or just a person, even if you don't have a business, or you're not a creative, but you just are intentional about creating a certain healthy balance in your life, you definitely have to manage that. So I so appreciated it, just for that overall, right? Just making sure that you're using the tool of social media and the internet for positive use, and making it more of like an optimal experience for you, rather than something that's taking over your life. And the way that we tied it into relationships, that quote, when I'm consuming, I'm not creating, is, of course, one, what we're just talking about now, is that if you're consuming, and I'm sure many of people in their families, maybe even relationships, have probably had experiences where, you're trying to connect, you know, with either your partner or your spouse, or even parents, you know, with their children, and vice versa, where the phone becomes the main distraction, right? And so where you can actually, you miss many opportunities to create authentic connection, you know, because of this distraction that's in your life. So of course, that's one way that being able to appropriate that and keep that quote in your mind will hopefully always kind of allow you to remember to make sure that you maximize those moments that you have with each other, because we all know it's not promised. You know, tomorrow's not promised to anyone, and so we want to make memories, and we want to make the proper connections in life, so that, you know, we're using our time with the best of wisdom. So that's one route. And then two is just exactly what it states. It's like, if you're consuming, and don't get me wrong, I appreciate those of you who are listening to me now and choosing to consume my content. And right, that I'm hoping that you're choosing to listen to my content because it is going to enrich you in some way, or empower you and inspire you, right, to go forward in your relationships and build the best relationship possible, whether it's your relationship with yourself, your relationship with your spouse, co-workers, friendships, etc., right? Giving you those fundamental principles to build your life. And so I appreciate it. And I always say, if you are listening to me, I appreciate you giving me a part of your time and your energy, because they are the most precious currencies that we have here. So I appreciate it and I honor that. So I want to make good use of your time, right? So hopefully you felt that way with me, if you are a listener who has listened to me multiple times, or if you just are a newcomer and have come across my live stream. So with all that being said, though, when you are consuming, you're not creating. So you know that in the moment when you choose to consume something, you're allotting that time, because it's going to take away from the time that you can create. That means creating memorable moments with your family. That could be creating that business idea that has been lingering in your mind. That could be creating just something that is creative, you know, whether it's music or art, something that works a part of our being or our brain that, you know, definitely if you're adulting, you know, sometimes life repetition and the mundaneness sometimes that comes along with the routine of our lives, that oftentimes we don't get to experience. So having that type of quote at the center of your mind switches the gears, right? To me, what it has been doing for me is to make sure that when I'm choosing to consume, that it is going to be something that I'm going to consume that is going to pour back into my creativity, so that I can go back and create the things that I know I'm purposed to do. And then lastly, one of the ways we tied it into our relationships, that quote, when I'm consuming, I'm not creating, is that I said oftentimes in relationships, and you guys can let me know, feedback, let me know if you've either experienced it or you've either seen people go through this, is that, you know, when we have our arguments, when there's a fence that's made, whether it's, you know, by happenstance or you didn't even intentionally do it, because we often offend each other just because we're different, right? Different cultural upbringings, just different perspectives and points of views and ways of life. Bringing two people together, you can offend each other oftentimes without even intentionally trying to do so. And oftentimes when that happens and you experience hurt in that situation, in that moment, many times we can get imprisoned in that moment. We can get, you know, locked in the hurt. And so even that is consumption, right? So when you're in your relationship and you're going through things, we can choose to consume over and over again, whether it's replaying what that person said that you didn't like, or what they did that rubbed you the wrong way, and you can continue to consume that, or you can choose to switch gears or put on a different light switch and say, you know what, we're going to start from here, and then we're going to create how it is that we feel like it is best for us to optimally experience each other in the relationship, right? So those are some of the three things that we kind of tied in and broke down what we talked about from the last podcast. So I'm going to take a moment because I see some new viewers. Hey, Jack, always good to see you. Thank you for popping in. I appreciate you. Definitely especially on a holiday weekend. I didn't know how many people I was going to get tonight. I was like, they're probably, family members over. You're probably doing things. So I appreciate you guys. And Tara 313, I think this is your first time at the podcast. If it is, please welcome. If it's not, my apologies. Thank you for coming back again. But you guys came in on me basically talking about over the overview of what I talked about on my last podcast. So she said, no, you can't. Oh, no. I have another viewer who says they can't hear me. Why is that? I want to make sure. I'm sorry. It's live, guys. And lives often sometimes have technical difficulties. Let me make sure. Even when you do your test run-throughs, which I had no problem with any of the sounds. Let me text her and see. Hopefully it was something that, or if it's just her. Let me ask Ajax if I'm sorry, guys. For those of you on the other platforms, this is my Instagram platform, that they're saying they can't hear me. So I just want to make sure that they can hear me now. And that maybe if it's just her, let me ask Ajax if he can hear me. See if it's isolated thing or if it's actually all the way through. Really? Oh no, thank you for letting me know. I might have to, yikes, jump off and come back on because I don't know why you cannot hear me right now. It should be working. That said a lot too. I'm so glad. Oh, you can hear me now. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you for letting me know. I didn't know. Welcome to live, people, right? At least you know. It's not fake. I'm definitely all the way live. You're going to see every polished moment and every hiccup. I appreciate you. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure. I'm glad that you can hear me now. So what I was stating before you couldn't hear me was that when you came in, I was basically just going over our last podcast and what we were talking about. I'll throw it out to you and some of the other newcomers that came in. The quote that I went over was, when I'm consuming, I'm not creating. It's a quote by a professional surfer called Bethany Hamilton. She actually is a surfer who was attacked by a shark. The shark definitely bit off her left arm, and she's like a phenomenal woman. She's amazing. She basically not only built her athleticism back, but of course, all of the emotional, all of the mental endurance that she would have to, be able to go through to basically get her life back. And so that statement is a statement that she made when she was on a podcast, and they were asking her about family structure and how she basically makes sure that she maintains proper energy to not only be a mother, be a wife, but also cultivate her craft, which is she's a surfer. So that is a statement that she made, and I thought it was just a healthy dose of truth. So I wanted to present it to you guys. And the question that went along with it was, what are the top 3 things that you would like to create with your partner, with your spouse, or if you're single, your future spouse? What are the top 3 things that you would like to create with your partner, your spouse, or your future spouse if you're single? So that's some of the things that we're talking about. And I literally was just doing an overview of how I tied in that quote and how it is applicable to relationships and to kind of use to grow our relationships. So, which I'm happy you came in, and I hope that that nice little overview was heard all across the platforms, hopefully. So we'll see. But feel free at any moment if you want to, tell me if you like that quote. Tell me if you think it's a truthful quote. Tell me if what are the three things that if you're single, you're thinking about your future spouse. I definitely like to present questions that when people are single that they can ask, themselves first. And then, of course, ask potential people that they're vetting that they feel like could possibly be, right, a potential husband or wife for them. And I think that's definitely one question that you could definitely, right, think of. And I just love the quote and I love the question because I think in modern day culture, social media, not just consuming social media, but I just think the culture, while the advancement of technology definitely creates so many advantages for us, especially those who are creatives, those who do have businesses or initiatives and things like that, to be able to have a far reach, to reach people all across the world. I do think that it can be polarizing at times and it can be a very strong vacuum for us. And unfortunately, sometimes if that is not managed in the right way or used to highlight some of those, I guess, trailblazing ways that we can connect to more people and reach more people, if we're not intentional about using it in the most optimal way, that then it can definitely rob us of many opportunities in real time, in real life, to connect with one another and create so many different things, whether it's a memorable moment, whether it's you two coming together and, coming up with goals that create, I don't know, legacy and wealth for your family, however, right? So that's what we were talking about on our last podcast. But let's get into tonight's topic. Definitely, if you do have thoughts on any of the overview that I went from our last podcast, I will most definitely take a moment, and read your statement because you took time to write it and, and kind of talk with you on it. So, but tonight is Sunday relationship scenario where I come up with a relationship scenario and you give me your thoughts on it. All right. You get to be the coach. You get to be the therapist. You are not compromised, which is great because you know what? We don't know these people. They're imaginary. From the mind of Sharla, so it's great. And it's a way to kind of extract some principles without being so emotionally attached, right? So I feel, that's one of the reasons why I do it on here. And this is one of the reasons why I do it with my clientele, because it's a way you can learn the principle without feeling like you are, right, underneath it all when you are actually going through it. And hopefully, whatever the conversation, how it unfolds tonight, you can kind of remember and keep it in your relationship toolkit so that when you're experiencing something that's either similar, you'll be like, oh, I remember when I was on the podcast with Charlotte and then we talked about this. You know what? I can kind of navigate this situation in this way. So that's my hope. So tonight's scenario is there is a couple, a man and woman who are getting to know each other, and let's say they're on their third date, right, of getting to know each other. And anybody who has navigated the dating scene or just really getting to know a friend and trying to see if they could be a potential long-term partner, future spouse for you, you want to ask the appropriate questions, right? To not only get to know them, but be intentional about the questions that you ask so that it provides you with the right type of information. So they ask, some of those similar questions, and the lady asks the gentleman during their conversation, basically, what was your longest relationship? And he states like 3 years, right? And then she asks him, what was your most recent relationship, And he says, oh, my most recent relationship was like a year ago. And she asks him, do you guys, how did it end, and do you guys still keep in contact? And he says, oh, it ended pretty amicably. It's just that I realized that it was something new that I was trying, and it didn't really give me what I thought. The way that we engaged with each other didn't really it didn't produce what I thought it was going to. It was hard to get more of a deeper connection with her. But he says that, she's his assistant now, right? So once he says that, because he basically tells her that they're still very amicable with each other. And now that she's, so much that she's his assistant. And so, of course, that gives her a pause. And she's like, what? Like, is she still your assistant? And, are you sure? Definitely things are streamlined. You guys don't have any more feelings for each other. And he's like, oh, no, you don't have to worry about that, because the actual person that I dated was actually an AI clone, an AI clone that actually, one of my coworkers worked on. And so she is like, not only shocked, but like flabbergasted, all of the words you can think of, and is looking at him seriously, like, is he serious or is this a joke? And she's like, you're serious about this? And he's like, yeah, no, I definitely am serious. And he works for a high-tech company, and so let's put him in Silicon Valley. Tara said, what an AI clone, right? That's what she's thinking, right? And he's like, no, yeah, I'm serious. I work for a company that is spearheading right now where we actually can make clones of ourselves. And we, in my department, we're the department that spearheaded it. So I actually had one of my coworkers clone herself. And you're able to program the clone. The clone is able to actually have conversations by itself, be able to navigate. They're like, Sharla, where was your mind going that you came up with this crazy scenario? Wait, don't go yet. It's about to wrap up, right? So he's explaining all this to her, and he's explaining to her that once the coworker did it, a part of the prepping is actually having conversations with them, seeing how, right, it would be to actually day in and talk to them. And he said that he actually started, developing feelings for the clone. But then, of course, after a while, was like, there's nothing that can beat human connection. And so, therefore, that's it. But once those clones are produced, they can become then their assistants in the office. And so that's who she is now. And that's it. And so she's looking at him like, she's trying to be gracious, but she's a little bit thinking like, okay, he's a little bit to the left, like not all the nuts, not all the bolts are screwed in, right? And and she's thinking like, okay, let me just kind of go through this day, and then after that, like, that's it, But he really tells her like, no, I just in the new modern day society that we live in, this is the way of the future, and this is the way that we're going. So I just wanted to try for that moment, but in me trying, I realized that there's nothing that would ever replace human connection, even though the way that we do create these clones are very, we download and program them to where you wouldn't even really much know the difference, right? So she's hoping like, I hope this doesn't give you a pause. I definitely want to be honest with you about it. But I'm definitely, that's not something I'm looking forward to doing ever in the future. And of course, there's no feelings. I literally use her as assistant for work, and that's pretty much it. So she's like, I want to run for the hills because I don't understand this. And so that is the scenario, folks. I know you guys are probably like, what is going on, Charlotte, right? With the scenario that you presented. But what do you think? Do you think, okay, that is definitely a big red flag, like run for the hills and don't look back? Or do you think, okay, the way he explained it, you kind of understand it. It is a part of his job. And so the way that he is kind of explaining to her, that shouldn't be something that is where she can't like overlook it. And let's just say he has everything else, right? Like his character, the way he's been showing up is great. There is no other red flag that she sees in the scenario. Do you think she should run for the hills and that definitely is a red flag? Or do you think, okay, no, it's just kind of how modern culture is going, and being the field that he's in, maybe it's okay. So what are your thoughts? I see Tara, and hey, beautiful Shanice, thank you for popping in. I just put out a crazy scenario. I don't even know if I can summarize that scenario. That's how crazy it is. Tara says, if the if the AI clone broke up with him, that says a lot. I know, right? You know what? That would have been a nice little twist, Tara. I didn't even think about saying who broke up with who, but in my head I was just thinking he's the one who that would have been something else. But I was thinking he was the one who cut it off, right? She said the clone was over it. Could you imagine? That would have been a really nice twist. I wish I would have talked to you about this scenario before I brought it up, but I didn't even think about that. Wouldn't that be something? All right, so you guys might think this is maybe, I don't know, maybe you might, maybe you're like, no, I've actually seen it. But for those of you who might be like, Charlotte, you went over the edge on this one, a little bit too extreme. You can literally go on YouTube and put in the search AI clone interview, and it will come up. Where I got this scenario from, or at least the idea to make up the scenario, is because I was on YouTube and I literally saw an interview where it was the same thing. Tech company spearheading AI, right, and the development of AI clones. And Fox News was interviewing the clone, and the worker that created the clone of himself was there, but he didn't have to speak. They literally just spoke to the clone. The clone answered all the questions, also engaged in conversation back to them. And I was like, oh my, like, I don't know whether to feel scared, like this is going to be Will Smith and I Am Robot all over again. Like in real life, I don't know. Or I was just like, I was amazed. I was literally amazed. And I'm sure you guys have heard stories of people who literally say they have AI girlfriends, right? And I remember one story where they said the man was actually saying he was going to marry his AI girlfriend. Okay. So that's the reason why I put it in the scenario. One, also because we go so deep here. Like I feel like I'm always not heavy, but it's always kind of like weeding through, because relationships can be complex for people. And so I try to go to some of the more complex issues and then try to kind of break it on down to the fundamentals. So I said, this might be like a little quirky, kind of funny thing. I don't know. You guys can tell me if it's funny or not. But I said, let me put this out because it's light, we usually get real deep here. So that's why I put it out to you guys. But I'm stating that to say that this is, even though it might seem like it's far-fetched, it is not, guys. It is not far-fetched. They are literally doing this to the point that you can, like I said, just YouTube, search it, and put AI clone interview, and you will see. And the person, after they interview the clone on the interview, the programmer, the person who created him, was saying that basically our company is spearheading this, and this is the way of the future, and. Of course, the interviewer had so many different questions for the gentleman who created it. And so what are your thoughts? Tara said, she said, how do they hump though? That's a very good question. And it's like, I want to know, but then in my head, it's like, I don't want to know. It's like, that's too much. I don't want to know. But all I know is that when I watched the interview, if you can, and I love the fact that they split the screen because they had the host in the middle, then they had the creator, and then they had the clone. And you can see how much the clone looked like the creator. And you can see that when she was asking the AI clone the questions, I guess they wanted to show you that the programmer was not the one that was, I guess maybe you're thinking maybe that person's behind the scenes and they're pushing some kind of button to make them talk. No, they wanted to let you know that standalone by itself, this AI clone can engage in conversation, it can answer questions, and it can also question you back, right? So the clone looked like the gentleman. Now, of course, he was clothed. So we don't know what the intricacies and how much human-like they are going to make these clones. However, but if they do make these clones very human-like, then that, right, question that Tara just posed, like, okay, how do they become intimate? How do they, that can be, written into the program. One, how they create these clones, and then I guess how the program, goes with it. It's pretty, I think it's extreme. And I think with anything else, created in technology, just like what we were talking about in the beginning when I presented the quote to you guys, when I'm consuming, I'm not creating, and how the advantages of technology, me being able to talk to anybody all across the world right now, and depending on what the content is, it can be something that's enriching, that can inspire someone to do, and propel them further, and that's great. But then we know that there are other aspects of it that can have its negative effects, right? Where it can almost become dangerous to a point as well. And that was my thought in seeing that interview, like, okay, I can see how this is going, how this can go too far, right? So, yeah. Yeah, right. She said that's probably why the relationship didn't work. That's probably why that's what he's not saying, right? That nothing beats human connection. Like, I can't be intimate with this thing, even though this person I've programmed, or my coworkers programmed this person to talk to me and it feel human like, but there's no way getting over, right? That it's just not. So I'm guessing. People are probably listening like, I don't even know how to answer this question, Sharla. Like, is this real? For me, it definitely would be run for the hills. Like, I don't know. Maybe, and maybe if you're in the culture, right? And that's what I really tried to step out of myself. And I tried to put it in context, even as I was presenting it to you guys, to say, okay, this is person's field, so it's not going to be something clearly that's, so far removed from them. They're not going to think of it in the same way that, a regular person like us who's not, in the field, entrenched in it, learning it, is going to view it differently. So I try to present it with an unbiased view in that way, which I guess I can understand, right? No difference if you speak to someone who's in a different industry from you and you learn from them, and even though it's not something that you could see yourself doing, you can kind of understand, right? How their perspectives, how they came or grew their perspectives on certain things. So I was kind of thinking about it that way, but I don't know, just, I think for me, if I was in that industry, I can, go along with whatever programming and format, but I don't know if I could ever bring myself to say, okay, I would be a person to say, okay, I'm going to, yeah, be in this relationship with this clone because they're very human-like and things like that. I don't think I could, like, wrap my brain about it. But there is, right, on the other note, I can see where it can fill voids in society, right? One of my favorite people that I admire so much is Mother Teresa. And one of her famous quotes is, she says that there is no other disease that is greater than loneliness, And so from that standpoint, right, I understand it as far as, when I'm thinking about like elderly people who might not have people in their life and things like that, where having like a AI clone as a companion, when we're not thinking about things like, in this scenario, I was thinking that, in my mind, I didn't give you guys an age for the couple, but I was thinking that they were more young, like no more than maybe early 30s or something like that. So, of course, questions like Tara is saying is going to come up because you're vetting this person to see if they would be, the person that you can see you having a future with, and that's going to, right, marry someday. And, of course, intimacy and the way they think and things like that are important and essential. But what about, I guess, spaces and places in humanity and society where the intimacy part is not a big aspect, but people just want to have someone there for companionship, someone there that they can talk to because they don't feel alone. So I can see the good in that way. But for the particular scenario that I just gave you guys, for me, if I was the woman, I would definitely say, okay, I don't really think that we'd be a good fit, because I don't think for me, I could ever foresee, especially if it's a like I said, a younger person who is looking towards the future. And I know for me, if I'm just thinking of the question that I popped out to you guys tonight, like what are the top 3 things that you want to create with your spouse? And if you're single, your future spouse, definitely if that was me and I was in those shoes, of course I want to like create a family. I want to create, memorable moments with them and things like that. And so I don't, they're still mapping things out. But that would be number 1 for me, where I could not, no matter how much I know about making clones and, the advantages of it and things like that, I wouldn't look in that direction because of that. So it would be a unanimous and hard no for me. And if it was a friend who asked me, I would definitely also advise them in that way. But like I said, I can see in spaces where it could serve some good, where those things are not as essential, So Tara says it wouldn't work for her either. Yeah, I'm with you, Tara. She said, I've seen the movie Megan. Oh, I haven't seen that movie, but I've heard people talk about it. As soon as it goes wrong, they try to kill you, right? See, I didn't think about Megan, but that is, yeah, I've heard about that movie, and they were saying how people were getting scared by that movie. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I just automatically thought about Will Smith and iRobot. That's what I was like, oh no, he was right. They're about to come get us. But yeah, I would agree, Sometimes humanity, right? We can just like destroy ourselves. It comes to a point where it's like, okay, like just stop. Like you're going too far now. We're going too far. We're going to literally kill ourselves, And I guess that's the far. I guess that's because I'm thinking about the quote that I introduced to you guys. When I'm consuming, I'm not creating. I guess that's like to the far spectrum in the other way, where it's like, okay, you creating too much, like you going off the rails, right? So yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And I don't think I would have to question. I don't think that if I was in that situation that I could probably get over or not question the mental state of the individual who did that. I would definitely, I would be more interested in continuing to be his friend, just to kind of like pick his brain to see where he was as to why he decided to do that. Like, were you in a lonely space? What did you really think? What did you not think about? Maybe having a future family, and or pick their brain about is there some way that the workaround that they're trying to think that you can still do that? I think I would switch in that way. I'd be more curious to figure out those things, but definitely not to have a relationship. No. I would have to say, okay, do not pass go. We can only maybe associates, good associates. And that's pretty much probably it for me. So that's the scenario for you for tonight, guys. Thank you for going there with me. I know y'all probably were like, what in the world? Charlotte was watching too much sci-fi this week. She brought us this cray-cray, this cray-cray situation, and literally expected us to talk about it tonight. She said he wasn't thinking at all, right? Sarah, like, no, there was no thinking involved. He wasn't thinking at all. I know, because, in that space, at least for right now, I guess within culture, most of the jobs are going in that direction. And when it comes to like tech savviness, you think that, at least it's stated in many places where those people are very smart and intelligent and things like that. But I guess as people say, like, book smarts don't always include, not necessarily all the time, common sense, or wisdom or any other things. So maybe it was one of those cases. But I don't know. But I definitely, if I was her, that would have been the last date. It'd be no more dates after that. He would be just more of like a curiosity to me, to kind of like figure out like, okay, why did you want to do this? But I'm telling you guys, if you ever wanted to, I don't know why you would, but just maybe even just to say, okay, let me check the facts to see if what Charlotte really brought up was really true. I guarantee if you go on YouTube and you put AI clone interview, you will find where they literally have these interviews and they talk about the companies that are spearheading this. So it's not something that, of course, the scenario that I made up, as far as I know, it hasn't happened, at least in my inner circle, to be, present it to you guys in that way. But there are stories and articles of people who are, and I think what's interesting is that if we continue going in the way that we seem to have, when it comes to our ability, or maybe lack of ability now, due to, so much of technology, where we can easily just continue to remain disconnected from each other and not take advantage of moments to create connection, there can be, a pandemic of loneliness across the board, right? That people have. And I can definitely see a way. Wouldn't it be interesting if it was that, like, excuse me, guys, where you put this out, right? You put social media, you have all of these gains that we have in technology, and the very thing that you creates all of this disconnection, or fuels it in people, because maybe people can't manage it really. They can't manage the consumption of it, and so it alienates them from each other. And so the very thing that you implemented, now you create something else to be, right, maybe the thing that's going to fulfill the loneliness void that a lot of people have because of it. So I can see definitely, if they were to roll it out, where people would, accept it because of that. So that's very interesting. Hello, how are you? Semi-Grand Rachel, how are you? We've been on for quite a bit. We went over a bunch of different things tonight, but tonight I did put out a very, I don't know what kind of scenario to call it, a little wacky for lack of better words, scenario tonight about two couples. Not two couples, a couple. I don't even know if I want to call them a couple. Friends vetting each other, going out, seeing if they could be potential partners, future spouses, etc. And on the date, the woman asked the man, just simple questions like, when's your longest relationship? How long was your longest relationship? When was your recent relationship? How did it end? Etc. And in a nutshell, basically, it turned out that his last relationship was with an AI clone that he basically met and created with for the company that he's working for, and how you literally in his department they're spearheading where they basically were given the opportunity to clone themselves. And so one of the co-workers cloned herself, but they can program the clones to, not necessarily just be just like them, but have their own individual personality. And a part of the process is that they had to test them out and talk to them and, see how it would feel, to see if it would be very similar to or akin to talking to a real life person. And as he talked to this clone, he started to connect with her and have feelings. But then he told the woman that he was on the date with that, it ended because he realized that for him, nothing trumps real human connection. And so now she's just his assistant that works with him in the office. And yeah, so the scenario was like, do you think she should run for the hills and never look back? Because he's a little, the nuts, the screws they're not screwed all the way in. Or do you think from his perspective and the way that he was trying to reason with her is that this is, I'm in a tech company, let's put him in Silicon Valley. And this is the way of the future. So it's not something that is so, it's not off-putting to us. It's literally, we handle it day in and day out. So it wasn't something that he viewed as being this thing that was, that I guess other people would call weird. He just tested the waters and he felt like, oh, this is not really something that would be for him. So, yeah, so that's what we were talking about tonight. I know, kind of different, but I was telling them that you can look up, you can literally research, whether you go on Google or YouTube, and really research and see that companies are doing this. And there are people who have stated that they're having relationships with AI clones. So this literally, in my imaginary scenario, can be actually something that in the future will be a reoccurring real life thing. Could you imagine? So that's what we're talking about tonight. So thank you for coming in. Hey, Truth and Rhyme, how are you? So, yeah, so we're going to, I appreciate all of you guys who took the time out to come with me and go there with me and listen to that scenario. I think in both of the quote that I introduced in the beginning, when I'm not consuming, I'm creating. And the scenario that I brought up, which I guess would be on the opposite of end of that quote, where, okay, now there's something that's being created that is like, okay, the potential of what's being created has some dangerous, right, aspects to it when it comes to just society and humanity as a whole. And so I think at the end of the day, both of them are connected in a way where one is like, okay, when I choose to consume the things that I choose to consume, let it be a place and a space that I go to that's going to enrich or spark or inspire greater creativity in me that I can pour out, into the world, or first pour out to, if you are married, if you are in a relationship, to my partner and my spouse, and then, let that overflow go into the world. So that we can kind of manage it, right? Or whether it's a person who's consuming so much that it prohibits their creativity and they're not either creating memorable moments with the people that they love and their family, or they're not creating, as I like to say, things to leave in this world that will outlive them, that can continue to enrich and serve people long after, right, their physical body is gone. Or if it's the other spectrum where we want to really think about what we're creating and the damage that it can, the damaging effects, I should say, that it can, long lasting effects that it can have on, right, either the person that you're with or society as a whole. So I absolutely, I've been thinking about that quote nonstop since I've heard it, and that's why I presented it to you guys, because I do think that most definitely, I can't even say I think, I know that putting that switch on from consumption into creation is only going to benefit your relationship in the best way, especially in those moments where I know you guys have probably experienced it, maybe not towards your partner or your spouse, but maybe even if you've been hurt by a family member, maybe if you've been, feel like you're not honored in the position, if you're an employer and you've been, done wrong while being on the job, or however it comes up for you. Maybe it was a friend, who hurt you. We don't want to get stuck in consuming something that is going to take away your power to create a different experience or scenario for yourself, right? That's like at the fundamental level. If you leave nothing else from this podcast, hopefully I made you laugh today. But other than that, if you leave with nothing else, is to kind of hold on to that main message, is that, when you think of that quote, when I am consuming, I'm not creating. Know that any moment you can flip the switch from consumption to creation, right? And you can choose to say, I'm not going to consume, whether it's my own repetitive thoughts that serve me no good because they're not going to empower me, or they're making me feel like the victim, or, you know what I mean? It's not giving me the fuel that I need to change or improve, or maybe even disconnect from people who aren't serving me. Once you switch the gears and say, okay, I'm going to make sure, manage my consumption, consume the proper things that I need to elevate my soul, my being, my mental state, so that I can, do things that are memorable to myself, to others, etc. So if you leave with anything else, I hope that's what you leave with today, and that you hopefully that quote stays with you like it stayed with me, so that you can keep that, in your heart and your mind, and that way, maybe have a nice conversation with your spouse tonight, or your partner, or someone who, you think is a potential person that you can possibly spend the rest of your life with, or even if you just talk about it with your friends. It's a good conversation. And I think just opening the opportunity to talk about it combats the polarizing state that we kind of live in modern culture, to consume everything. There's a quote that I always say here on my podcast and to my clients, and I always say, don't forsake the wisdom that God has put inside of you for the knowledge that's presented to you daily. And I'll say it again. Don't forsake the wisdom that God has placed inside of you for the knowledge that is presented to you daily, because we have knowledge from the moment you open your eyes. There's knowledge that is presented to you, whether you see it via on the news, whether it's coming through your phone from looking at social media, or even just going outside and having different conversations to people. When you are filtering that information, stay grounded in the truth of God, and let that, whatever knowledge that you're getting, come into your space and in your way. Let it be filtered through God's love and His truth, and respond to it with wisdom, and not detaching from the wisdom that's inside of you, because there's really nothing that we're going to consume here that will be greater than what it is that you pour out of yourself that has already been, quote unquote, downloaded or programmed in you, that is from, your higher power and God. So let's just stay connected to that main purpose, and when you do that and you do that in your relationships, it becomes easier for the moments where there was offense that was made that maybe wasn't intentional, even the ones that were intentional. It helps us to kind of let go of it so that we can create the type of environment and the atmosphere that we would like to have and experience in the relationship. So I thank all of you guys. Thank you for, giving me your time, your energy. I always say it. It's some of the most priceless currencies here. Your faith, your time, your energy, your love, expression of love of one to another. So I appreciate you. You popped in here for a moment or you stayed for the whole podcast. That was some kind of expression of love to me, and so I receive it. And I thank you for coming on with me. Thank you for listening to my very uncanny relationship scenario tonight and going there with me and sharing with me your thoughts. Hopefully, you can say, I listened to this lady today. And do you know what scenario she came up with? And you can talk with your family members, and maybe you can make a memorable moment of how either funny that was, or they'll be like, whoa, or shocking that can be, etc. So hopefully all of the above. So if you heard anything you like, if you are a newcomer, I thank you. If you are a repeater, I thank you for listening to the show. If you heard anything that you liked, if you feel like content like this should be spread out into the world, please do me a favor and go and like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, just so that the algorithm will pour out this content to as many people that would, benefit from it. So I appreciate you guys in that way. If you want to dive deeper in coaching with me, if you're on Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube, you can click on my website in the description. If you're on IG, just click on the link on the bio. I do individual coaching for singles and couples alike, as well as I do group coaching through my Forever Friends Academy. So definitely when you click on the link, that's where it's going to take you to Forever Friends Academy, where you can sign up. It's tiered membership levels. So yeah, check it out. There's snippets there that you can hear from some of the sessions that we've had. And I also have a public Q&A there for people who aren't even members, but just kind of want to see how it is. So let me know. All right, but I had a great time with you guys tonight, as always. I appreciate. I will be back on, God willing, Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you were new, I usually come on 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Thursday and Sunday evenings. So enjoy the rest of your holiday, Labor Day weekend, and hopefully I'll see you again on Thursday. I appreciate you guys. As always, I like to say, always remember to live to love freely until the next time when I get to talk to you. All right? Bye.